Inside Out Talk aims to bring people together by discussing LGBT plus issues, people, community, influences, history and politics. My name is Richie Litchfield, and in this podcast we're looking at intolerance and homophobia faced by some of the LGBT plus community. Some people may say that being a gay person living in 2019 is easier than being a gay person living in 1999. The rise of social networks, internet and the media's influence has changed people's perception of the LGBT plus scene from what was once a negative to now a positive. What would you say has happened in the past 20 years to make people's attitude towards the LGBT plus community more accepting? Would you say that the youngsters have it easy now compared to their predecessors? Is it easier now for a person to be open about their sexuality at work, or do you think being gay holds you back? We aim to discuss some of these issues in our fortnightly podcast, and we want to know your thoughts too, so get in touch with us via our website, theinsideoutcampaign.org.uk, email us at talk@insideout.org.uk, or tweet #InsideOut. Now today in the studio I'm delighted to be joined with four people who represent the LGBT plus community. Stuart Carr, a journalist and reporter, Ellie Martin, a performer, Alan Lathwell, a parent, and Christian Buddha, our producer. Now without further ado, let's find out a little bit more about them all. Thanks for joining us everyone. Let's start with you, Christian.
So, my name is Christian, I'm 22 years old, I'm a student in Luton, I study advertising and branding design. I would say some of my passions are photography, arts, graphics and music. I'm the producer of this podcast and the designer of Inside Out campaign.
Hi, my name is Ellie, I'm 18, I'm a performer, I'm also a teaching assistant and a barmaid. Some of my main interests would be music, musical theatre, classical films. So that's me.
Hello, I'm Alan. I'm a parent of four. In my spare time I enjoy painting, and historically-wise my favourite artist is Van Gogh.
Hi, my name is Stuart. I'm 32 and I've been a reporter in Luton for 5 years, and I've written about pretty much every issue I can about injustice in Luton.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it out there. It's nice to have you all on board again. What does the word intolerance mean to you? We'll start with you, Ellie.
To me, intolerance is the refusal to accept something. It's the refusal to accept a change of your own opinion, maybe. And it's almost like a defiance. To me, anyway, I see intolerance as quite a self-righteous thing, you know?
Yes, I'll agree with the statement you said there. But one thing I would say is, one word I like is persuasion. It's listening to someone else's opinion and getting them to change it permanently for the better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring persuasion into it, because in order to be persuaded you have to be willing to listen to other views, and that brings us back to intolerance.
Yeah. Communication is a two-way thing.
Yeah,
you have to be able to listen as well as receive it.
Yeah, and when I think of intolerance, I just think of somebody who's not willing to go on that listening journey to try and pierce somebody else's point of view.
That's the whole thing about persuasion. You have to be there to listen to their opinion and then turn them around for the better.
For me, intolerance can be linked, I would say, to discrimination. It's when people don't really listen to you. They don't even try to accept you or understand you, and they're basically just throwing you out of their lives. And I think it's a really awful thing to do to someone.
So just to set the scene here around the table and for our listeners, we've obviously got people on this table that identify as gay, lesbian, transgendered, and so on and so on. But do you all have other people in your life that identify as part of the LGBT community, and who are they?
For me, I don't have anyone in my immediate family that identifies as LGBT, so I kind of feel like a bit of a black sheep in that respect. But among my friends and acquaintances, I would say about half of them do belong to the LGBT community. So there's quite a bit of difference, I would say, between my family demographic and the people that I probably spend the most time with.
I'd be quite similar, like, I can't really think of anyone actually in my family that's openly gay, but within, you know, the friends that I have, majority of the people I'm friends with are gay or bisexual or, you know, part of the community. So, and I am myself, of course. So.
What about you, Alan?
Well, personally, I haven't got any family or relatives that are gay, but I've got quite a few friends that are gay or lesbian. I just enjoy other people's company, if you know what I'm saying. It'd be very, very broad if we were all the same.
Personally, I would say the same. I don't have any relatives in my family that are that I identify as LGBT, but I have lots of friends that are part of the community, and they are very supportive. And I would say even my friends that are not part of the LGBT community are really supporting and loving.
Fantastic, and I'm exactly the same. I don't have anyone in my immediate family, but a huge amount of friends that are part of the LGBT community, as well as like on the straight side scene as well. So, talking about yourselves or your friends, have you known about any of them that have faced any sort of like bigotry from homophobic people?
I mean, I went to an all-girls school, and I came out as bisexual in a science lesson, and it wasn't a kind of standing up and saying, "Oh yes, by the way, everyone, I'm bi." It wasn't that. It happened actually in a conversation with the teacher. Now my school was like all Catholic girls, and a lot of the teacher was very like, you know, very Catholic, very religious, and I think we were talking about evolution, and conversation goes on, and I came out, and it was like this massive shock to everyone. And for years afterwards, I think it was a lack of kind of knowledge about that kind of community, but I just get questions all the time, you know, like, oh, so which do you prefer? Like, you've got to have a preference. It's like, no, that's what bisexuality is. You don't have a preference, you like both, you know. That's the meaning of it, bi meaning two, you know. That kind of ignorance to it is what kind of hurt me. It wasn't straightforward outward homophobia, it was more ignorance. Yeah, it was more of an ignorance that hurt me. And I remember sitting in the sixth form kitchen with about 30 girls surrounding me asking how lesbians had sex, and it was so strange, like really, really odd experience. And
were they asking that, picking on you, or just were they generally interested?
It was kind of a mixture of both. I mean, me, like, personally, I never really had many friends at school, and I'd be clever enough to know when, you know, people are taking the piss or laughing at me or whatever, but they were very clever about it. They wouldn't outwardly say anything, so I wouldn't be able to kind of retaliate and say, no, I know you're just making fun of me, because it was all very subtle, you know.
Sometimes you don't always know, but you do know. They
Yeah.
don't have to say anything to you, but it's just their mannerisms,
The tone.
their attitude, the tone. It happened to me actually last week here in Luton at a kebab shop. I went to get a kebab, and it was very early in the evening, and he was really vile, absolutely vile to me. But a pretty young lady walked in, his attitude completely changed. And I felt that I came out, and I think I told a few people that straight away that I wasn't at all impressed. I didn't feel very comfortable with the whole thing. I will never go in there again. Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at school, I knew that I was gay, but I kept it strictly under wraps. But there was one other boy in my year who was much more camp and much more feminine, and I hate to say it, but much more kind of outwardly, obviously gay. And he used to be bullied mercilessly. And at this time, we still had, was it Section 28, the law that was in place that forbade any kind of open, real discussion about homosexuality in schools. And he was pretty much just fair game. And it's awful to think of now, but I kind of remember looking at that and sort of feeling like that was even more justification to kind of hide and not, you know, be wary about how I hold my wrists, don't let my hands flop, and don't try and sound as masculine as possible. And it's sad, but I still see that type of thing happen even now in places that I've worked in with lots of other men. If there's been a particularly say camp or somebody who's not been very masculine, they tend to get excluded. And I do think when it comes to discrimination, as we know, it's people are much more judgmental if you come across as, you know, less than manly or less than womanly.
You're making me smile. May I just bung one comment in there? Alan Carr is one thing. It's like, he's really camp, but can you imagine him from a young age? Mum, Dad, I'm coming out, I'm gay. And thinking, really?
So what about Stuart? What did you find though, because obviously you weren't being fabulous and sparkly and camp and everything else, you were sort of like repressing that a little bit, you weren't being your true self, or were you being your true self?
Do you think that makes it harder to come out if you act in...
Oh, completely.
Completely. Cover it up, rather than being open from the start, you feel pressurised with the society to keep it under wraps, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I kind of feel like I'm stuck between two generations, really. Like, perhaps the generation whereby it really wasn't okay to be out when you're younger, and the newer generation whereby perhaps it's a bit more normal for school children to be talking about it, and it's less weird.
I was just saying, years ago, you've got Brookside, and they had the first lesbian kiss on the soap opera, but now you've got a gay couple of men, and it's before Corrie, and now it's much more acceptable to have two men kissing in the pub. But 20 years ago it was a real no-no.
But yeah, going back to that, like 20 years ago in the 90s, then the main examples of coming out that I saw when I was growing up were people being outed in the Sun, shows like Jerry Springer, which discuss things like being trans and gay in the most humiliating way. And I mean, George Michael, let's remember, he came out after he was spotted in the toilets in Los Angeles, and for me that's what coming out meant. It meant a load of humiliation,
that element of scandal.
Yes.
I mean I'm 18, but I remember, you know, I'm that weird generation, like we grew up with technology, and I remember, you know, reading newspapers when I was younger, and that's how we got our news, you know, and just like the headlines, you know, kind of people being outed in the media and it being treated like a kind of a scandal, like
very sensationalist.
Yes, exactly, which gives it that element of, you know, it's frowned upon. Do you know what I mean?
Well, for me, I would say growing up, I grew up in Eastern Europe, in Romania, and it's a really religious country, I would say. There, the main population is Orthodox, and growing up, I was a little bit, you know, more girly, I would say. I had a girl's voice as a child, and when I was in middle school and even in primary school, I know people, my colleagues were bullying me a lot for this, and I didn't really have many friends because they would usually just not connect to me in that way, and it was a very depressing time for me. When I started my teenage years, due to bullying and yeah, I think that was quite a sad thing for me. The thing is, I didn't really know any other LGBT people at that time, and it felt like I was alone. I felt like there are very, very few people like me, and I'm basically alone.
Well, I can identify with that as well, Christian, because myself, I went into a cocoon when I was at secondary school. I really did not like it. I was being bullied left, right and centre. I was very quiet, very timid. I was the smallest, shortest, and can you believe it, the thinnest person in the classroom, and I could not bear the whole going to school. I used to try and ring in sick as much as possible, tell my mum I wasn't going in, and I didn't stick up for myself enough when I was at school. I really didn't. I should have, but I didn't. And I kept having people saying to me, you need to stick up for yourself, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to speak up for yourself. I didn't. I think I made up for it in later life, because from the minute I left school I went straight into drama school and then hit the ground running and just wanted to be on TV presenting constantly and shouting out my message. So I kind of was a little bit repressed myself. So moving on a little bit then, we've spoken about homophobia. So you all know somebody, or you've all at some point in your life witnessed homophobia. What do you think is the most believed myth by people who are intolerant towards the LGBT community? Alan?
Sorry, can you repeat the question there?
Yeah. What do you think is the most believed myth by people who are intolerant towards the LGBT plus people?
Maybe historically wise, the church, they say that homosexuality and being gay is a sin and you'll burn in hell.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real old-fashioned, politically these days, un-PC, but there's people still
believe
that, and and that's one thing I don't like about some churches. They'll tell me, they say, you're mentally ill, we'll pray for you and cure you of your illness, and I think that's totally wrong. But there's people out there that believe that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
I think for me probably the biggest thing is people think that it's a choice, it's a lifestyle decision, and that if you hang around enough with LGBT people you'll just become one. And I can't say it for everyone, but I know for me,
so it's not catching.
It's. I don't believe I caught it off anyone.
It doesn't rub off. Don't worry.
What about you, Ellie?
Well, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. That kind of whole idea, like, oh my God, you're gay. Don't go near my children, because if you go near my children, they'll be gay as well. It's like, mate, I'm not interested in your children. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like the whole gay agenda thing. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is massively ironic, because not to criticise people that have religion, because I'm not criticising religion at all. It's that aspect of religion that people take and run with, that homosexuality is immoral and and all that kind of crap, and they're so self-righteous about it, and they say, oh well, you're gay, you're gonna influence other people to be gay, when actually they're the ones that are trying to push their agenda onto you, which I think is the kind of joke of it all.
Yeah, I would say the same. One of the really ridiculous myths about it is that some people think that LGBT people are going, to recruit other people to make them gay. And if you allow this in schools or around children to discuss about this topic, they are going to become gay, and we come here to recruit and have I would say like a sect, but
like a cult.
Like a cult.
Yeah, we're not a community. We're actually a cult. Sorry, everyone.
And I think it's really ridiculous to think that.
So the next question is aimed really mainly towards Stuart as a reporter. So as a member of this sort of LGBT plus community, as a reporter, do you think your actions inspire others to be out and be themselves? And if so, what have you done?
I think, I mean, when you have a job or any sort of role in life, you have to kind of use it to do whatever it is you want to do. And certainly, while I've been a reporter, I've always sought out LGBT issues. I've found people who've been struggling and having problems, whether it's through homophobic abuse or, you know, social isolation or just a pure lack of facilities. And so I've always found a way to kind of support them and certainly report on, you know, on what's happening. Because I do think when we talk about LGBT issues, a lot of it is all very, very London-centric, and it's all thought of as being in the big cities, whereas in fact, how people live in towns and especially villages, I think perhaps we should be more aware of that.
Okay, so more general question now. Do you believe sexual orientation should actually matter when it comes to one's career? There was a point in time, I remember, a few years back, actually filling in an application form. It was asking me these questions: what sexuality are, what was I? I mean, now they put it on a diversity questionnaire, but I did feel like it was a little bit imposing. So, what do you think? Do you believe it should matter?
Well, I mean, as somebody that works in a school, I think, especially a Catholic school as well, it's a tricky thing. For me, none of my colleagues are aware of the fact that I'm bisexual, and it's not so much that I would hide it, but it's more like if they asked me, I would tell them. That kind of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. It's a very tricky thing to navigate. I remember when I was at school, actually, at the same school, and we had a teacher. He was a student teacher. We had him for a couple of months, and he was, you know, quite camp, quite, you know, it was fairly obvious that, you know, he might have been gay, and it was like this big kind of thing amongst the kids. And I just remember like people tormenting him about it, like, Sarah, have you got a boyfriend? And I look back on that and I think, is it going to be like that now? I mean, obviously that's going back nearly 10, 12 years ago. I mean, I wouldn't be sure if kids are still like that now, but it's almost like I don't want to take that risk.
What about you, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to get ahead in the world, we are still very gender segregated in terms of appearance. And, you know, if you're a successful man, you should wear a suit. Your hair should be sorted out. You shouldn't have too much of a beard. And if you're a professional woman, you wear high heels and wear dresses and skirts and so on. And I think that can be quite difficult when you're LGBT, because you feel as though you're having to conform to a straight stereotype of how you should look. And I certainly think in that respect, getting on ahead is quite difficult, because you have to sort of put a part of yourself away. And I do think one thing that a lot of, not all LGBT people, but a lot of them have in common is how they express themselves through dress, through fashion, through appearance. And I certainly think work culture hasn't really caught on with that yet.
Yeah, I'd say in the UK, it's we're a lot more accepting in other countries. You know, there's still a long way to go here, but you look at some of the other countries and they haven't even broke the ice, so to speak. There's like kids at Dubai where you can be stoned to death for being gay, and they've been boycotting the Savoy Hotel and that sort of thing. But it's a lot more acceptable than here. We've still
That was in Brunei.
Brunei, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other countries. There's a lot of work to be done abroad, but here I'd say we're only really just getting started.
And what about you, Christian?
I believe this aspect shouldn't really matter in any career. It's a personal thing, you know. It shouldn't define one's identity. It shouldn't be something that actually makes you suitable or not for a certain career. I think people shouldn't really care about this aspect and let people do what makes them happy and to achieve their career goals without this, you know.
Excellent. Do you think you'd be a different person if you had more support and acceptance growing up as part of the LGBT community? Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, my big regret is I wish I hadn't been so hesitant about it when I was a teenager. I wish I just embraced it more, and that as soon as I became an adult, I kind of went out there and just lived my life rather than kind of have that internal struggle for so many years. Yeah, I think life probably would have been different.
Well, for me, within my own family life, like my parents are very accepting, but I'm part of that kind of Irish community, and it's like its own little bubble. And I know that really, like, if I was to come out, you know, to people within that community, it would be scandal, it would be gossip, and I resent that in a way. But with my family, like, I don't think I could have better support, you know. Like, my parents themselves have always said, even before I ever came out, have always said, you know, to me and my siblings, like, it's fine, it's cool, like, we don't care, you know, you're always going to be our child. So I think the thing I struggled with was actually outside the family and in school. I think that's the aspect of my life that kind of maybe was slightly more negative, and that's with me coming out. But I don't really like to look back on things and, you know, wish I'd done something else, because you can't really change what you've done. So all you can do is move forward, really.
I would say yes. I would probably be a different person now if I had more support. I've been struggling a lot during my teenage years. The first time I came out to my friends was when I was 17, and before that I would always try to fit in the heterosexual stereotypes. I tried to behave differently. I tried to be more manly, which was a really difficult thing to do every day, because everything you do, you would think, oh, am I manly enough? And that kind of kept my focus from being my true self and developing my own personality in the right direction, I would say. So yeah, I think I would have been much happier and a different person now if I had more support.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Let's just summarise this now. What do you think can be done to make the workplace a better place for the LGBT plus people that work there? Alan?
Just take people as they come and give the job to the best person, not be prejudiced. The best person for the job, rather than be influenced by the wrong mindset, if you know what I'm saying there. Accept everyone for who they are, not what they are.
I'm going to differ slightly and say I think that we do need more women in management positions and more women in boardrooms, and perhaps less gendered clothing and that sort of thing, especially in
that's
the
a whole
business
different
world.
topic on itself. I mean, do you think, you know...
The next time.
Yeah.
That's the assumption that women are more empathetic with the LGBT.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I just think that, you know, we have certain stereotypes of how we expect men and women to dress and look and so on, and I feel that maybe changes there would improve things.
I think it take it back to basics, like you were saying. You were asked on an interview form or an application or whatever, like your sexuality.
That was one of the main questions, not the diversity sheet.
Yeah, like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, why should it matter? You know? And
I didn't get the job. I didn't even get an interview. Funny that, isn't it?
do you know what,
Very
though?
honest.
Yeah.
Do you know what, though? You get those diversity things, you know, at the bottom, and they're not there for diversity, and we all know that. Because that manager is going to see that. And
They could have their own prejudice.
exactly. So take it, like, take it back to basics. Remove personal questions. You know, keep it to the work. Like Alan said, you know, employ the person that's best for the job.
Yeah, I think people shouldn't be judged by their sexuality or gender when it comes to a workplace. For instance, I'm quite surprised and I'm happy that I got hired as a part-time in a pub, and I am gay, and usually in a pub working women are the ones that are getting hired, because it's that saying that women attract the customers.
And it's a real footballer's pub, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite rough. But you fit in very well there.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us here on this podcast. That's all we've got time for in this episode. Thanks, everybody, for your contributions. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, you can reach out to us in the following ways. You can go to our website, and by the way, on our website as well, we'll also list some other websites that if you're looking for help, you can go to. So the insideoutcampaign.org.uk. You can email us at talk@insideout.org.uk or tweet us at #InsideOut. Now, in our next episode, we'll be discussing the repercussions of hiding your true self. Join the team and me in 2 weeks' time via our platform, the Inside Out Campaign. Thanks for listening.